There we go. Right. Okay. So I thought just first of all, we'd sort of put the whole thing into some sort of context. For me, at the moment, doing online consultations, I would say it's one of the main things we work on, and that's mostly due to lockdown. You know, dogs that have been quite happy being left have had 2 years or even more of their humans at home working, and now they've got to go back to work again. The dog has got unused to being left alone. So we've got that. And then we've got the other thing, of course, with all the lockdown puppies that people have got. So we've got a lot of dogs coming up to 2 or around about 2 years old whose owners can't go out and leave them. So we've got two sides of this. One is what it's like to be the owner, to be totally trapped in their own house, and especially if they're a single person where they haven't got somebody they can leave the dog with. So that means they can never go out without the dog or without organizing something, or else the dog's in a mad panic. So from their point of view, it's a real difficult thing. I mean, obviously the fact you're here, you having dogs with separation anxiety, so it really impacts on your life. And the other thing is looking at it from the what it feels like for the dog. I mean, it's awful for the dog. I mean, one reason might be just because the dog's bored, which isn't quite so awful, but not mainly it's going to be extreme loneliness and total panic. Sometimes that's the whole panic of being alone. Maybe if they've been shut in a crate because they might damage, panic like claustrophobia. So it's not funny. And the other thing is, if you haven't got a camera, you can't really know what your dog's doing. There was a survey by Channel 4 once. It just took a random, I think it was 100 dogs, and put cameras in these people's houses. And this was long before everybody had a camera in the house. And they found that some huge number, I think it was getting on for 80%, had some sort of separation problem, anxiety. And most of those people didn't even realize it. And the other thing they found was that the ones that seemed actually most distressed were probably the quietest ones. They couldn't tell by the noise they made. So it's not always obvious by whether they've toileted, damaged things, barking all the time. You know, the pacing and the panting and the stress was sort of very visible. You know, we had on this program, there were people in tears because they just hadn't realized just how bad their dog was feeling. And I myself had a little bit of an idea of what it must be like, because as you see, I'm old. I went to boarding school when I was 7 years old. And, you know, it wasn't that unusual. My family fell on hard times. My father was ill and I was sent off to boarding school. And so I'd been this lovely close family. And all of a sudden I was left in this school with other kids, older ones actually, and it was just awful. So, you know, I can actually quite empathize with that. Anyhow, so looking at separation anxiety, there's so many different types of things. It's not one single thing. One is, I suppose the simplest one, is just fear of missing out, as we all know. This is the dog that has to be everywhere with you because the action's already always with you, and you know, wants to be where the action is. I mean, that's sort of fairly natural, isn't it, if you think? And some of those dogs are absolutely fine when you're not in the house. It's just when they know you're there and they might be missing. And then you've got another variation of that, the fear of missing out ones, and that is the dogs that can't let you out of sight, but even worse, when you actually go out of the house. So you've got that. Then you've got that's very attached to one particular person, over attached to a person, and their panic happens when that person leaves them. Nobody else will do. Then you've got the other one where basically anybody the dog knows will be okay, as long as there's somebody there. And then the other one, the only one I've ever really experienced, and it's much less usual, is where the company of another dog works. I mean, in this case, I had two dogs, German Shepherd and a Labrador. The German Shepherd died. I had the Labrador as a puppy, and he was 1 year old when my German Shepherd died. And he was distraught. Nobody could go out of the room. They couldn't go anywhere. He was an absolute mess. And back then, this was quite a lot of years ago, I thought, oh, well, I'll go and get him a puppy. So I easily found a lovely chocolate Labrador puppy, no problem. It didn't cost that much money. She was lovely. I called her Marmite, brought her home. And Monty, the Labrador, was absolutely in love with her. He couldn't care about people. All he did was want to be with this puppy. And we had our freedom back. But that was really, really unusual. That's a very unusual case. Anyway, there are certain things. Here he is. Right. Okay, here he is. Wherever he is. There's Matt. Hello, Matt. Can't see you. Can't hear you, but you're there. Right, okay, I'll carry on. Right, so there's certain things which actually contribute to it. Obviously, lockdown has contributed to it in a big way. One thing I believe can contribute to it is people who leave their puppy to cry when they first get it. So when they bring puppy home, has never ever been alone in its little life ever. Hello, Matt, you're here. I think that I can't hear him, but we can see him. That little puppy's been left all alone and to cry all night because somebody somewhere has said that's what you ought to do and let it cry it out. And I think that, you imagine that this little puppy has never been alone and how insecure that's likely to make that puppy. Okay, it may stop crying eventually because it's pointless, it's not working, but it's not going to help future sense of confidence and security, I don't believe. Another thing which contributes to it is people, because the puppy or dog is so distressed when out, the people don't realize, don't see it from the puppy's point of view or the dog's point of view. They come back to damage, like a shredded sofa or something really bad, or toileting, and then they get angry and the dog is punished. Now, on top of being all the other awful feelings the dog's having of panic and unhappiness, they've now got dread that when you come home, for some reason, you turn into a monster when you've been out and come back. And of course, they won't know the connection between why you're doing it. So there's another thing. Another thing I think is that when people try to creep out, they creep out, okay, they can go out, and they may manage to do it for a few minutes or even half an hour before the dog realizes you've gone, and then panic. So I don't think long term that's safe. And then another thing that it's contributed to is that the dog doesn't feel safe. Now, what happens is, you know, the dog normally, if the doorbell goes mental, it goes silly if stuff comes through the letterbox or if there's people walking past. Now, how can that dog settle if suddenly post comes to the door or the doorbell rings or something like that? Because that means that your work is undone. So those things have to be looked at as well. So if it's a doorbell, then either you take the doorbell down or you condition the dog to love the doorbell. So all these, there's a lot of little things which add up to what you do in the end, okay? Yes, I think feeling bored and feeling unsafe and loneliness, those are the main things. Let me look what I was going to say now. Yes. Oh yes, the next thing is you can see the variations. There's all the different sorts and all the different reasons, all the things that contribute to it, all the triggers. It might be picking up a key, it might be all these things. You see how it's all different. It's a mix and match. So there's no thing you can say to anybody here, right, your dog has separation anxiety, do this, do this, do this, and that's what you do. It has to be molded for each individual case. There is no one thing that can possibly fit the whole lot. Okay, now the two things which cover everything are, first of all, while you're working on the plan, you can't go out. I don't say you can't go out, but the puppy or dog must not be left alone. So if you're going to be successful, if you start leaving the dog for longer than you've worked at, it's got to be done in baby steps. So you gradually, and it's got to have a particular little ritual, a particular sequence, so the dog knows exactly what you're doing and it knows at the end that you're coming back. Now, if you break that and suddenly have to go out for 2 hours, you really have destroyed all the trust you've built up and you're back to square one. So that is a very tricky thing. The two things which are really tricky is, one, you have to arrange it so that there's somebody to look after your dog. It's a bit more tricky if the dog's over attached to you, but that isn't quite so common. It's most often that anybody, the dog knows what to do. So you can't just go out and leave it. So you've got to make all these elaborate plans and you've got to be patient. And just nowadays, as I say, you want something from Amazon, you get it the next day. We're not built for patience anymore. Perhaps they being old, I might be. But yeah, I think those are the things. Okay, so we've also got various other things you can do while you're gone, you know, like the music and all that, which we'll look at as well. So just sort of the last thing, a little bit along the lines of looking at, you know, is the dog feeling safe while you're away? A lot of people don't leave the dog somewhere the dog is happy. To me, it seems logical. You think, where is my dog happiest in the house? What room is the dog happiest in? Right, I'll leave him there. Now, half the problem is, of course, because You're worried about the damage, so you have to put the puppy and a dog in a crate. Now, the dog very likely hates being in a crate, but you put it in the crate, you shut it in the kitchen, it hates being shut in the kitchen. So maybe its favorite place is on the sofa or on your bed even. Right, so why don't you leave it there? Right, because of the damage the dog might do. Well, of course, if you're working on a sensible plan, you're never going to leave that puppy or dog longer than it's happy with, so there won't be any damage. So anyway, so that's one thing I would say, finding a place that it's really helpful, you know, where you're really happy. And then it's a question of building up a ritual which is actually suits you. And this is what we do now. We certainly look at Carrie and Matt. And then we'll see if we can build up a ritual, and then we'll do it with some more as well if we've got time. Okay, so do you want to take over, Carrie? Put your mic on and tell us, or get Matt can. What we want is the age and breed of the dog. Okay, we want a little bit about what's happening, basically. Yeah, just a little bit, but let's have a bit of the background first. Okay.
Matt, I'll let you go because he's your dog. I just care for him.
Tell us the age and breed, Matt, to start with, and then what exactly is happening.
Good evening, everybody. So Milo is an 11-month-old. He's just about a month away from his first birthday. So he's 11-month-old working Cocker Spaniel. He's been with us since he was 12 weeks old, I think. You know, so we got him as soon as we could, to be honest with you. So yes, he hasn't really been away from us much at all in all that time. We were very conscious we didn't want to leave him on his own for any sort of extended period or anything. So I'm in a fortunate position when I can work from home quite a bit of the week, and when I don't get to work from home, he goes to Carrie, and Carrie looks after him, of course. So and does a fantastic job. So generally speaking, I don't know. Initially, I kind of put it down to kind of dog FOMO. Effectively, he follows me everywhere. He doesn't ever leave me alone. He's sat sort of snoozing at my feet at the moment. And I think when we sort of particularly first time we kind of really noticed some kind of separations, I think what we think might be separation anxiety was when myself and my wife were doing some work just outside, and I think he could see us through the window, but he couldn't get to us. And the howling and the noise that he made was something else, to be honest with you. He was really quite, whining, going into proper howling. What did you do about it
at the time, Matt?
At the time, we tried to reassure him through the window. Because
why didn't you let him out?
We didn't let him out because it's at the front of the house, so it's not contained, and I didn't want him running into the road or anything like that. So if it was a back garden and we were doing stuff, absolutely, he would just come and join us. It wouldn't be a problem. But I was trimming back the wisteria on the front of the house, and it was just a case I didn't want him out there at that time because we couldn't keep a proper eye on him and control him, if you like. And he's pretty good. He doesn't go far, but it's on a road here, so we didn't want that to. That was the concern, effectively. So we just tried to reassure him that everything was okay through the window. That didn't really work. I mean, it was only half an hour or so. So in the end, we came back in. So. And I think, Carrie, you've had similar experiences where you might have just popped out to the car to grab something, if you like, and you've noticed at the same time as well. He's kind of
can you see you, Carrie? Is he watching you go, or can you go if he can't see you?
For me,
yes.
Well, I was thinking actually from just listening to what you were just saying that perhaps what I should maybe do is open the wooden blinds so he can see me at the car. But what happens obviously is that, when for those who don't know who I am, I'm a licensed dog boarder, and I have Milo coming to me on daycare quite regularly. And what I have to when I'm getting them all ready so I can have up to 6 dogs at any time, including my own, we're getting ready to go in the car. I can only take them in stages, so he gets really upset because he can't see me. And all I will say to him, look, I'm going to the car, it's okay, I'll be back soon. I will generally leave him with my dog, who's a show cocker, but Milo will crack off and start this pitiful whining, and then to crying, to howling, but that then sets my dog off and he thinks it's fun. Well, it's almost funny for him, because with my dog it's very much like he sings, he howls, so he sings, so that's part of his routine and stuff. But Milo is you can see it on his face, he's so fearful that you've gone. in the fact that when
This sounds like two separate things though, Carrie, sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
In
sure.
Matt, it sounds like he can see Matt through the window and wants to join Matt. Whereas possibly if he was put in another room at the back of the house or something, maybe and couldn't see him, it might be better. Or maybe you had him out tied to something. But you know that. But what you're saying isn't like he can see you doing something interesting with missing out of him. With him, he's afraid of not going for the walk, isn't he?
It isn't, because even, you know, we had a situation, I think last Thursday. So I have one dog that I walk and I go and pick him up. And so he was sat in the car, and I've got one of these big SUVs and he can see out the windows and everything. And I literally, all I did was open the door to go in and get the other dog and go and grab the dog. And he's like, I can't see you.
What would happen if you, sorry, what would happen if you took him first? What would happen if you took him first and put him in the car first?
Same thing, because he can see me go back into my house to pick up the other dogs and bring out.
Yeah.
But well, it's a little bit now and again. It's not repetitive. So some days he won't do it at all, and other days he will. So it's
okay. But that, I would say, is more to do with sort of trigger stacking. If he's already in a fairly aroused state, he's so much more likely to do it than if he's already calm, I would imagine. I wonder whether you might just, I think we're dealing with two different things. I'll come back to you in a minute, Matt.
No worries.
I sort of think you could possibly use management with. I wonder what would happen. Now, this might be totally impossible, but what would happen if maybe you tied him around your waist, did all your things with the cars, take the car, the other dogs go in the car, taking him with you all the time, but he's tied to your waist, so you haven't got to use your hands. Ooh, and he's with you all the time. And I think if you did that for long enough, he might get out of the habit of barking when you go. And in fact, sometimes he might not even want to keep going everywhere with you on your waist, tied to your waist. So that's quite a good, these sort of limpet dogs that don't want to let you out. Sometimes if you actually tie to your waist, but that means you don't take any notice of them. They're just jolly well got to come everywhere you go. And sometimes they're probably quite pleased to think, God, I don't want to go with you, you know.
That's a good idea. I can do that because I actually tie the dogs now to, I have a halty, so it loops around my waist, and I'm tagging the dogs to that halty and to take them to the car because it's a lot shorter and a lot easier on my physicality at the moment. So yes, it's good. I will try that when I have him for next week, so we shall try it.
So take Milo with you all the time, just see what happens. Interesting to know.
Thank you. I will try that.
So I think an awful lot of problems are solved with management. You know, you don't have to be particularly clever with it. You know, just what's going to work best. It may be the same with you, Matt. If that is the only thing, you know, okay, pop his harness on, pop a lead on it, tie it to something, and take him out.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting better with him. I have noticed. I mean, it used to be when he was younger, even if he was on the other side of the door to me, it was, you know, be whining and whatever. He's now, I think, starting to learn that it's all right to be on his own a little bit, you know, and in small bits, you know.
Only when he can see you, Matt.
I can't rule that out completely, but what I would say, and this is something kind of hot off the press, if you like, I popped in to see my neighbour next door. We live in a semi-detached, so we can hear things through the wall and whatnot. And I popped round to see her, and I thought I'd try leaving, because you know, you read about things about slowly leaving him on his bit, you know, increasing that amount of time and everything else, which I think you said just as I logged on. And I went next door for a little bit, and he couldn't see me, and we couldn't hear anything through the wall at all. And it was probably 5-10 minutes, if that. And then I think when I popped back, I mean, he was over the moon to see me. He was bounding around the place and everything. It was lovely. But I just think that was quite encouraging. And I think I want to kind of keep building on that.
Well, what you need to do, you need to build on it, but you need to set yourself up a routine so that he knows exactly that you're going to go because of the various signals and things, and that you always come back. I would say for now, if like you want to do something out the front, you've got to make being away from you by himself much nicer. So for instance, if you wanted to go out the front and do the wisteria and not have him with you, you need to give him like a meat bone or something.
or chew or something like a little treat.
Something
Okay.
really good, you know, so that
Yeah.
while you're out, he's busy. And he knows something that you give him when you go, and either you pick up when you come back if he'll let you, or something which he finishes, so that he knows the only time he's going to get that is when you depart.
And it's an association. It's like a positive association because he gets
Yes.
a treat with it as well.
Well,
Okay.
this is how I would do it. Let's now, I think actually this has been quite interesting. Now let's do what, if you were my client and you wanted to be able to go out, say, for 2 hours at a time, which seems reasonable. And that's your goal, not to go out for 8 hours, but just to go out for a couple
Oh,
of
yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
And the first thing I would say is, where would you like to leave him? Now, you don't want him looking out of the front window at things going past, that's for sure. Because I mean, especially a dog that might maybe barks at things, you definitely don't want that. And you don't really want him upset with the post coming through the door. So you either leave him somewhere at the back of the house or you deal with that. Where is his favorite place to be?
Interesting, because I think when I came back from the Navy, he came back down from upstairs. I could see him come down the stairs as I came to the door. And I wondered, he couldn't get into our bedroom, but where at my sort of office, which is in another room upstairs, there's a little crate that he used to have that when I'm working, he just goes to. He just sits on top or goes into and has a little kit when I'm doing some work at home. So I think he went just up there because it was a place he's familiar with. And I think he just went into his little crate, which he can get in and out to whenever he wants.
So basically, the best thing for him really is to have a certain amount of freedom to choose where he wants to go.
Yeah, but I take your point about maybe not looking out the front or whatever else. I
You
think
want to draw the blinds. Now, do you have a door? Does he get upset with the doorbell?
he gets excited with the doorbell. Yes.
Well, certainly, if you had doing all your careful work and the doorbell ring, that would probably undo it, wouldn't it?
He'll just do the usual, I guess. He'll bark and run downstairs and get to the door. He's excited to see what's going to be coming through it.
Certainly will really wake him up, won't it, if he's settled?
It would do, yeah. So
if he was a dog that really panicked or got too excited, the next thing I would do while you're doing all your stuff is to desensitize to the doorbell. And the only way you can do that really is to ring it hundreds of times. And the best way for that is to get 2 identical doorbells and both plugged in together. One bell outside and the other in your pocket, and just keep ringing it. And then every now and then ring it and drop food, So in the end, they take no note of the doorbell. They almost think if that's the bell, then it can't be anything. And that means that's the doorbell out of the way. Next thing is I have an outside letterbox. Tape up the letterbox, right? So he's not going to get disturbed, upset. I'm actually talking more about now dogs that are probably a bit more upset than he is. Stuff coming through the door. So you've got none of that going on. All right, and then you need to build up say that it's going out of the front door. You actually going out, which really troubles him. So you need to be. This is not so much you specifically, but this is anybody. You've decided where the dog's going. So you say it's on the sofa. Okay, so you want to practice setting the dog on the sofa, giving the dog a bit of food, picking up your keys and walking towards the door, but not even going out of it. Now coming back, putting your keys down again. Okay, so you're going to slowly build up a thing which is going to involve whatever you normally do. Show the dog where you want it to go, leave it, drop it a bit of food, say something like back soon or whatever little ritual you're going to do. Leave something visual so that if your dog does go to sleep and wakes up, he knows you're out. So something like a cap on a door or a cushion in a different place. Leave something visual. So you're putting the dog where you want it to be. Come on in here, good dog, bit of food on the floor, back soon, pick up your keys, add the visual thing, whatever sequence. Everybody's going to have a different sequence, okay? Walk towards the door, stand there a moment with your back to the dog, come back, put the keys down like nothing's happened. And do that until the dog doesn't even take any notice of you going to the door. Now you are going to open the door, maybe the door of the room or the door of the house, whichever ones you go through first. Open the door, don't go through, shut it again and go back. This is how small you need to break it down. Next is go to the door, go out of the door, go just around the side, out of sight, and come back in again all the time. Now, as you build it up and you've gone for longer, there are 2 things you need. You need to make when you depart very nice. The longer you go for, you need to leave something really good, something the dog can eat and chew and really love. So leaving is very nice. But when you come back, you need to be boring. Now, I'm not saying you ignore the dog, but you don't want to be exciting. because that's another thing you're going to add, especially to the FOMO dogs. When they're coming back, we're going to have so much fun. You're going to have a party. So we don't want any of that. So you don't need to ignore the dog when you come back. You don't want to be exciting, you want to be very boring. So basically when you go, it's nicer than when you come back. And all you can do is build it up. And then by the time you can manage to stay outside the door for 2 minutes, you then must have a camera for your phone. That's the only way to do this, because you need to come back before the dog gets at all stressed. Okay, and he might not be asleep, but you can tell the difference when he starts pacing or panting or going to the door and getting agitated. You should come back before then. And it's a question of doing it lots and lots and lots of times over and over and not pushing it further. The more you put in on this early stage, the better it is in the end. Now you can imagine, can't you? You've got to a stage where, you've got 10 minutes, and that's a real achievement. 10 minutes, dog knows you've gone, you haven't crept out on him. He's lying down, he seems quite happy, he's finished whatever you've left him to eat, and he seems quite okay. And you can manage 10 minutes. Now that is a real achievement. But of course, you can imagine what will happen now if you suddenly decide you're going to leave the dog all alone, without any of that. It is, you need a really good ritual. And the other thing you need to build into it is, while you're away, there are things that you can do which might make it easier. I mean, there's the usual thing of music. In a way, it depends if you want your dog to be restful. I think being restful is the only way. You don't really want most dogs that don't mind being left, they're much more peaceful when humans aren't about. It's when the humans are there they get worked up. So that, if you leave the dog alone, he normally wants to sleep. And so you don't want things that are going to wake him up, which is like the doorbell. And so you don't want, I don't know, classic FM, where you're going to have adverts, trumpet voluntary, then something quiet, and there's all varied. You want something level and boring. So, I mean, you've got Alexa, you can say calm music for dogs, and you can have calming music. You could even perhaps do white noise. What you could do is have a program or something of somebody reading a book. So it's a human, actually. So it all depends what it is that, I mean, with your dog, Matt, will anybody do if you go out, or does it have to be you?
No, I mean, he doesn't just stay with us, he stays with Carrie, as you know, he stays with my brother-in-law. My neighbours come round and actually just sat in for a while.
Anybody will do, as long as you've got human company. Yeah, exactly.
I think I do think in a lot of ways, when I think back, I think if he can see you but can't get to you, then it's an issue. But I mean, I do wonder actually if he can't see you and there's a bit of routine as you've talked through there, and he's left on his alone a little bit. Sorry. Then I think he might be okay. But I mean, I'm only basing it on the time I went to my neighbours.
I think that's where you need to start, to be honest with you. But don't leave him all alone until he learns. You have to build it up really slowly. And it may be the biggest step, the first step. Actually, it'd be quite interesting to hear from everybody else whether let's have the breed, the age of the dog, and I'll go through you and here I've got somebody's come in. So I'll let them in, I'll be kind. What we have, the age, the breed of the dog, and whether and what sort of separation, whether it's anybody will do, whether another dog will do, or whether the dog's over attached to one person. Shall we start with you, Julia? Okay.
Hello. My son promised he'll be completely quiet. Let's hope so, because he needs to hear that.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm Ilinka. Actually, this is just my daughter's account. Sorry. So yeah, it's fine. Julia is fine. We have a English Cocker Spaniel. She's almost 3 now. We got her when she was 4 months old from a puppy farm in Gamlingay.
All right.
At the time, I thought it's a very, very good decision. Now I think it's the best decision. Just that she came with a very, very big luggage full of trouble.
Oh dear.
So from the beginning, her stomach was destroyed. I barely managed to put her on a diet that she won't die of worms and whatever she had. And slowly, we got her in November before lockdown. She was fine until January, February, March. I would go to work, she would be okay. My husband was home anyway, generally. But after that, COVID came, of course, we've been home.
Yeah.
She is our third Cocker Spaniel that we have in the family, me and my husband, separate. So this is technically our first Cocker Spaniel together, our family. So we taught her to be.
Hang on a minute, just 1 minute. I think somebody's got a television or something rather loud. I think it's a new person who's come in, Galaxy SB, whatever that, S8.
I think.
Could you put yourself on mute, do you think, just for a minute? Person who's just come in. Only that we've got, I think that's where the noise is coming from, because it's only just started. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So she is probably with a lot of separation anxiety among other problems that she has. But she is barking a lot when we are away.
So
Because she's very independent. She is a very, very independent
she's
dog.
independent, but she doesn't like being left alone.
Exactly.
Well,
So
when you
outside-
can you leave her with anybody? Anybody? Doesn't
She's
matter as long as she
gonna
has
be-
human company.
As long as she's home. Because if I let her in a different house to
Okay.
someone else, she's gonna be quiet. She's not gonna do any noises. She's gonna be friendly enough. But she is petrified of, we noticed she looks like an abused dog, a very abused dog.
You've got a lot of different things going on, and because of this,
Exactly.
we're going to have to stick to the separation bit, else we're going to get too confused.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
thing I noticed when, for example, she's left with someone else in a different house, she's gonna be okay, but she's gonna have other issues after. So she's gonna be affected
Have
by,
fallout on it.
Yes.
So basically, she
But-
needs to be in her own home, but
Yeah.
any person will do. Doesn't have to be family.
even what I noticed, even with another dog.
Is it good?
So
Does
we
another
have-
dog
we
will
have
be
a friend.
okay?
Yes, we have a friend who's rarely leaving her dog with me because we know each other for many, many years and she knows I take a good care of her dog. And I noticed over Easter holidays this year that they really get along well. She
So
is a
you
very old dog and she's a pinscher, I guess. Yes, a
So you
miniature.
can go out, can you, and leave just the two dogs?
Yes,
With
I
no
could do
people?
that. With no people,
Well,
I
there you
left
go.
them
There's one where
our-
another dog will do.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is unusual. I'm going to
It
move
is.
on now because I think I would love to be able to talk to you for longer. Perhaps if you want help, we'll do something, a
All
bit
right.
longer. But that's really interesting. So now we've got one where another dog will do, and that is unusual, I must say, like my dog. What,
Yeah.
Louisa? Hi, Louisa. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, tell people a little bit about the, just a little bit about the dog and what separation means to you? the dog?
So Tallulah is a pug cross who is 8 this year. She has gradually got worse over the last few years. COVID wasn't an issue for me because I carried on working throughout COVID anyway. But she has gradually got worse and worse and worse to the point where she howls, she paces, she cries, she just does not settle.
Is it
which is
just
why-
when you go out, or will anybody do?
She's fine when Rob's here.
Yes.
She's fine. She's fine when somebody else is here.
Okay.
Obviously, this is why we first came to you, wasn't it? About with Tallulah,
Yes.
because she had this massive panic when we go out. So she is now on medication.
Is it helping?
Yeah, it has helped her, but I've started noticing. Remember, I said to you about the whole routine where I started getting dressed, I put my shoes on, she starts following me around, she's barking at me, and when I'm getting ready to go out, and then when I go out. And the last week or so, or couple of weeks actually, she's started to do that again.
Louisa, you are leaving her alone, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I have to go to work. Yeah,
I know. You see, this is the really difficult thing about it.
yeah,
It makes a problem so difficult. It's almost
she-
impossible.
yeah. I mean, we have got another dog.
Mm. That doesn't work with her, does it?
No,
Another dog isn't enough, is
No.
it? Maybe we'll have another chat, but I don't really know of any way to do it if you
Yeah.
actually work on it, if you still got to go out.
it's difficult because there isn't anyone that can kind of come and stay with her.
No.
I mean, on the whole, she is like, when we leave her now, she kind of doesn't really. I noticed the other day she did get upset because I was going to be out for a long time, so I got my mum to come and sit with her for a bit at lunchtime and let her out and things like that. And when my mum left her as well, I kind of put the camera on to see what she was up to, and she was howling and she was attacking the Hoover and she was on the table, and
Oh, it's
you know,
just-
so that kind of like, she
yeah.
probably would have been better being left on her own than if somebody
Maybe
had come to
it sort of upset her. My boarding school story was that by the time I settled into school, 3 weeks later, we had a weekend where the parents could come and take us out on a Saturday. And it was worse than if they never did, because it was the whole distress of being separated again. Yes, I really don't know what you can do, you know, because the
it's just
whole
one of
thing
those-
hinges on doing it gradually.
yeah,
What
and we
about
did,
someone like Carrie? What about daycare?
well, we did have a dog walker that would come in. I don't know if she'd want to go. I don't know if she'd go to daycare.
Because you need something that she's not alone at all to build from.
Yeah,
not
the
sort of
problem is
like
with-
somebody just popping in.
Yeah, the problem is with the other dog as well.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be able to go into dog care because of how reactive he is. That would kind of set him off. So they've both got completely different issues. She'd be quite happy going into dog care with other dogs and things like that. Whereas he,
Well, would he be
Wouldn't.
happy left alone at home?
no,
Oh dear.
because when
Very difficult.
he's her son, so he's never
Oh.
been without her. So even when I've kind of just taken her to the vets on her own and left him at home, he constantly cries while she's gone, and he doesn't really
You know,
settle.
I have no,
back.
without having sort of a few weeks or months really of not
Years.
leaving her alone, I
Yeah.
really don't know what you can do.
Yeah,
I really
It's
don't know if
just-
anybody else has got any suggestions.
it's a hard one.
Mm. It's very hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
What of the chat? Maybe we'll have a chat, Louisa, and just see if we can
Yeah.
think of anything. You know, maybe I hate to be stuck with something. I feel that nearly everything there is a solution for if we look hard enough, even if it's just
Yeah.
management. But I find it very hard to think of one for this. I really do. Gail, what about you?
Yeah, I've got a Sprocker Spaniel who's coming up to 8 years,
Oh, you've gone.
and I've also got a working Cocker Spaniel who was 1 year old at the weekend. My older Spaniel, he did suffer from separation anxiety when he was younger, and we did exactly as you said. We got him into a routine. He's got his safe space now. He's got a pod rather than a crate. We don't ever close him in it. But when I put my coat on and grab my keys and I tell him I'm going out, he'll take himself off into his safe space and he'll
So
just
that's
stay
your
there.
little ritual, and he knows that you're going to come.
Yeah.
back. Hmm.
Yeah, he's like that even if there's other family members around. My husband can work from home.
Are you? Sorry, you're frozen.
Can be in the office right next to him, but if he's like that even if there's other family members around. He will still take himself off to his safe space if I leave, and he will stay there until I come back.
So he's all right.
He's all right. He's all right. At the moment, my younger one is all right. I think what I'm after is just finding out any tips. Unfortunately,
Does she
I
keep,
was involved in an accident last year, so I haven't. Oh, sorry. I've been home for a number of months now, which I'm not used to, and they're used to me going out for a morning or an afternoon. And later on this year, I'm going to be going back to work for a couple of hours, so they're going to be left. And I think I'm just trying to prep for
Oh,
the
well,
younger
you-
one being
Very
there.
wise. Well, you know, it's really good because you're in a situation you can now rehearse lots of short absences with your sequence, the whole thing you normally do. And you know, when you go back to work, that it's going to be fine. You know, I would say the three things make is that you've got the feeling safe and a good place to leave them. Make sure something nice happens when you go. Make sure you're not tricking them. Sometimes I think it's useful to leave a visual signal just in case. Say they go to sleep and think, oh, is she in? Is she out? Oh no, that thing's there, so we know she's out. And don't be too exciting when you come back. And maybe, you know, you can do the thing about leaving music on as plugins and all those things. I don't know how much good they really do, but it's no harm trying. Yeah. But that's good. It's much better to preempt, isn't it, than to have to deal with once it happens.
Yeah, I think we got the puppy into a great space where he was still quite young and I was away for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. And
it's good. I'm sorry, is it Gail keeps breaking up, or was it me? I don't know. Anyway, Gail, you keep breaking up, so I have to, okay, sorry. Shall we have Rebecca next?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Did Gail break up for you, or was it something?
Yeah, she did.
Yes, okay, right. Yes.
So I have a 15-month-old Labrador, male Labrador, and we got him in April 21, so it's a year after the initial first lockdown. So he was originally crated, but didn't do very well crated, and then I penned off half of the kitchen, and he didn't do very well being penned off half the kitchen, and ended up jumping over the 4 foot high, you know, penned in area. So I then allowed him to have, we've got an open plan kitchen lounge area, so I can't, there was nowhere else I could shut him away as such. And then during sort of, you know, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, he was quite destructive. So then I didn't feel I could leave him because of the destruction, and it wasn't too bad. We're not talking furniture or anything, but he would like pull the picture.
Can I interrupt you a minute, Rebecca? Was this destruction when you are out, or just general destruction because he's a puppy?
A bit of both, really. A bit of both. He was a bit destructive when we were out.
Right, well, that means you were going out too soon, doesn't it? Because if he was absolutely happy, he wouldn't have been destructive.
Yeah. I mean, he would be asleep in the lounge, and then he'd obviously wake up and think, oh, I'm bored, and do some destruction. So then I didn't, then it was our fault we didn't leave him, really. We made sure that there was either people in, you know, we took it in turns to do whatever. I then booked him into, you know, doggy daycare, and then we hit Christmas, and I didn't want him to be around the Christmas tree because he might disrupt the Christmas tree. So since January, I've made a concerted effort to leave him for small periods of time. But what he does now is he will, our lounge is at the front of the house, so he will literally just get on the back of the sofa and look out the window the whole entire time. So if I pick up my keys and say back in a minute, back soon, and he's asleep on the sofa, he'll immediately get up, look out the window and stay there until I get back.
Right, well, first of all, there's a little bit of management you can do. But the thing is, I think it would be worth you putting in some time with lots of short absences, really short ones. The same thing. Build up your leaving protocol so that you know, you just walk out and come back in again. But what you could do is put some window frosting on the bottom of the window. I should have shares in window frosting, I think. Just put it on the very bottom of the window. And then just so you can see out, it lets the light in, but he can't see out.
Okay.
And then, you know, that will sort of solve that for start. So he's not going to be there watching you go and waiting for you to come back at the window. The next thing I would do is go for a short period of time and then give him something to keep him busy while you're gone. watch him on the camera. So, you know, give him, do 5, 10, 15 minutes absences, no more, just while he's still happy for you to go. He can't see you go. So leave him something. Leave him a stuffed Kong. I mean, he's a Labrador, so he's going to eat, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Leave him a stuffed Kong, maybe freeze it, make it hard for him, so that that's going to help calm him down. And then, you know, there he's just about finished, and there you're back again. You know, sorry.
I think part of it is he almost feels like if I've gone, then he has to be on alert to keep an eye out.
Yeah.
He can't switch his brain off almost. He will only really settle and sleep if we're all here, or if I'm here, or, you know, if someone is here with him.
You just got to do it a short stage. And the other thing is make sure he's quite tired when you leave him. So make sure he's had his
Yeah,
walk.
I do.
Yes, all those things. Leave him something to do, I think, and do, if you could go back to not going out apart from 5 minutes at a time, do it an awful lot. You know, you could do it 10 times in a day.
Yeah.
Not a Kong every time, but a Kong
No.
going for a bit longer. Always leave him something nice. Make part of your sequence, putting the music or whatever you're going to have on. Anything you can think of which he thinks, oh, she's going out now, is she? Because you picked up the keys, you put something down somewhere. Maybe you've asked him to go on the sofa. Maybe even if he gets off, you can go through the same ritual. Go out of the door, shut the door, count to 10, come back in again. You know, build it up. So the more you do it, the more he'll get so not that it's get sort of so used to it.
Yeah, thank you. He doesn't bark or anything. It's just I feel I've got to get back because he's literally just up at the window and looking really uncomfortable because he's standing on a narrow window ledge.
It feel guilty, doesn't it? I say that you'll feel better if he can't see you go and if you leave him something nice.
Okay.
You might even find that you can go for longer that way because you've got a camera, have you, on your phone?
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you see that he doesn't bother to look out the window and he goes and lies down, then you're going to not have to worry, are you?
Yeah, that'll be that's what I want. Him just to keep, you know, carrying on sleeping when I've left. Yeah.
Well, you can't keep him away from the front window because of your open plan house, but you can block his view, can't you?
I can, yeah.
And also the other thing would be to have an outside letterbox.
Yeah, because he is a bit reactive, you know, he will bark at the postman, bark at the neighbour.
He doesn't feel quite safe, does he? And now if you leave him by himself, he feels safe when you're at home and not so safe when you're not at home. So you need to do everything you can to make the environment as safe as possible.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No, what about you, Vicky? I can't see or hear you. Do you want to give up yours?
Here we go.
Here we are. Hello.
There we go. Hiya.
Hello.
I go back to Jack, who likes his cuddles, as you can see.
Yeah, you can.
He's a Jack Russell, and he's just over 2.5 years old. And today was also about whether he actually does suffer from separation anxiety, but I think he possibly does. When he's left on his own, he's in a crate, and he's a Jack Russell. He does have a large crate. He's not in a small.
Is he happy in his crate?
Well, I put a camera on him when I go out, and I check on him when I'm out, and he's asleep. You know, he's curled up asleep. And there's a motion detector, and every time I look at that, it's because he's moved to change his position. He does get excited if he hears something, though. I live very rurally and I'm in an old farm. So if somebody comes into the yard, it could be my brother or a postman or something. Not many people. He gets very excited, but it always feels like a happy excited. You know, we think, oh, somebody's coming to see me.
Does he do that when he's in his crate?
Yes. Yeah.
That must be quite frustrating or maybe even scary if he can't get out.
Yeah, he seems excited about it. It's excited the same sort of way as when he sees me coming through the door. He gets all excited because he knows he's going to be let out.
Does he have separation problems, though? It doesn't sound like it.
Well, I wasn't sure. But the other thing is he and I both go and see my parents who just live over the yard in a barn conversion a couple of times a day. He goes in his crate there as well because my mother's got a bit frail since I've had him, and he's a bit too excited when he first goes in. So he goes in his crate to start with, which he seems happy to do. But if I then leave him in the crate with them, he will then start crying. sometimes I've been able to escape, and he doesn't cry, but I think he thinks I'm in the next room.
Right, so you've sort of
Other
tricked
times
him.
I leave him and he'll cry for a long time, or other times I leave him and he just cries for a short time.
If he's
but
with
it's
your
always-
mother, why does he have to stay in the crate?
Until he's calmed down, he does then come out. But when he comes out, apparently he's always looking for me.
All right.
So I think it's more that issue rather than when I leave him here. Now, interestingly, what I've sort of noticed as well, if he's in the crate in my parents and they're not in the room, I don't think he cries when I leave him. It's only if they're in the room does he cry.
Right.
So I'm not sure whether separation anxiety or just having us on. I don't know.
Mm.
But the other thing is he is in the crate. I would like to, when he's in the house on his own, be able to leave him out, but I think he will get up to mischief. And I don't know if that's separation anxiety, boredom, or he just getting up to mischief.
But when you're at home, does he get up to mischief?
Well, if I leave him, I think if I left him out of his crate in my home on his own, he does start sort of, having a look, see what he can get up to.
Well, I think that they only do that when they're a little bit sort of aroused, and when people are around, they're more excited. And that, often when nobody's about, dogs settle better than when people are actually about.
Yes.
So I suspect if he was really okay, he would probably just wait till you came back. Rather than, because what's the point of looking for trouble if you are not there to deal with it? Because that's what he's doing it for, to get the attention. And he's not really going to get your attention if you're not there, is he?
I mean, I am going to try and leave him out of the crate because I've got a camera.
I would get your camera and I'd do exactly what I'd build up a short thing, a new thing, not in the crate, a new thing of leaving him somewhere, build up your sequence, just go out the door, come back, take no notice, and get him used to the fact that you're going to go out of sight after this particular process. So he begins to realize, and just see how that goes.
Yeah, because the other thing I'd like to do, that sounds awful, but I would like to at some point put him in kennels as well, so I can go on a holiday.
Yeah.
But obviously the kennel people, I believe, are very good at sorting that out as well and getting him used to go, he'll go in for a night or something like that, whatever they suggest. It's also building up to be able to do that to him. Because I'd hate to go away and find he wasn't happy. I'd be devastated.
It's awful, isn't it? We get dogs and then we're so totally slaves to their happiness, aren't we?
Yes, that's it.
Yes,
So yes, whether he does suffer actually for separation anxiety, he's just taken himself off to his crate now, and he can spy me from a distance.
Well, it sounds if you've got on the normal life, you've got it really cracked. When you're at your mum's, it's a little bit more difficult.
And I think that's what I need to try and.
But she lets him out and he's all right, but he's looking for you all the time then.
Yeah. So it's whether, I don't know what can be done about that. Whether
I would say that yours is a little bit of an over attachment one, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's just me and him. It's just me and him facing the world, really. So yes, he is rather attached to me.
Yeah. Maybe you just need to do a little bit more of things like shutting doors on him, like if you go to the toilet, for instance. If you've got rather than him following you in there, he knows where you are. He knows you're coming out. But what I would say, every time you do shut a door on him, drop him some food, so that you're building up an association with having a door shut with something nice. So every single time you go through a door and shut it, just do it a few times, even if you don't go anywhere. Wait, count to 5 and come back in again. Just get him used to liking doors shut. So it's food, shut door. Or even if you actually say back soon each time, that can be your magic words for when you are out. So you're really proving that back soon means you really are back soon. Yeah. Doors are the thing, aren't they?
Okay.
I wonder who Galaxy S8 is, because if you'd like to talk, I don't know, we've got somebody there, haven't we? Do you all see that? I have sort of all the windows on mine. I don't know if you do. Oh, here we are. Hello. Right. What's your name? I can't hear you. You haven't got your volume on.
There we go.
Yes. What's your name, please?
I'm Lisa. I don't
hello.
actually have any issues with my dog, but I'm a veterinary nurse,
right.
I love behaviour, and I do deal with a lot of clients at work and in the middle of the end of my diploma. So yeah, I'm just really intrigued because
Oh,
this
brilliant.
one's quite a hard one to crack, really.
Awful, isn't it? And from the veterinary point of view, I mean, I know I talked to my vet today. They're giving out medication for separation things like never before.
Yeah, no, I think we're a lot more aware of the medications that we can give now, which is really good. So it's definitely worth, you know, medication, having that on board, I think, for a lot of these that are quite distressed when their owners go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I've been a nurse for about 20 years, and the last 10 years really sort of got into behaviour because my dog was a bit of a pain. So you kind of look things up and look for advice and read a lot of books and, you know, that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's just fascinating, really. Yeah, very
Oh,
interested.
it's good to have you here. Thanks for coming. I'm
Thank you.
wondering, is there anything, I mean, if you have anything you'd like to contribute to say? Carrie, have you got anything which you'd like to say? Because, you know, you work with dogs, as do you, yeah, Lisa, so the pair of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what you've been saying, you know, like short absences and pairing things and giving them something to do and all of those things. I know there's been, sorry, that's my dog. I know there are some other changes that have happened with separation anxiety, with sort of, you don't need to desensitize them anymore to your routine and things like that. But I think you do need to desensitize them, don't you, to their routine?
Well, I think you need to desensitize them to things that might upset them, like the doorbell. But
Yeah.
I think you need to create a routine that create a special routine for it, whether you, I don't know about desensitizing to a routine. You know,
Yeah.
a routine has to have a meaning, doesn't it? This is what happens because that's what happens at the end of it, not like take no notice of it, which would be desensitizing. Would be pointless, wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah. So we do need to build that association, like you said, with a
You have to be
visual.
careful about the
sometimes as well.
associations. I mean, for instance, I'd used to sit at my computer, my desk, and all I have to do is like this, draw breath, because I'm going to get up and I'm going to pickle my Cocker Spaniel out. Okay, and immediately I'd only have to go like this, and he's all ready to go out and all excited. Now there's an example of desensitizing to that. So I was going nowhere all the time to stop him doing that. So I desensitized him to part of my routine was taking a breath before I stood up to take him out. So I kept taking a breath without standing up, and taking a breath with standing up, and not going out until he stopped bothering about me taking breaths.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to let him to know I was going to go out, I would do that. If I'm going to go out and leave the dogs, I want them to know I'm going out.
We're fine with what I do. I'm finding a lot of my new clients, I mean, I've got a good client base anyway, and their dogs are a lot older, so anywhere between 2 years, maybe 3 years old and 8 years. Probably the oldest one I have is 10. But we're getting a lot of new owners, particularly Cocker Spaniels, because obviously I'm breed specific anyway, so I only kind of board cock or spaniels and spanoodles, as I like to call it. But we're getting a lot more of, I mean, I've got a 1-year-old Cavapoo in tonight for his trial overnight. A lot of them are very much the youngsters. And some do have separation anxieties and others don't, but we are finding a lot with training behaviors, a lot of issues.
What was the word?
So they either haven't had any training because of lockdown.
All right, yes.
But I will say, well, actually, there's Theo online, or there was a lot of training going on. It was more the fact that owners weren't picking up on the fact that you could do it online. You don't actually always have to do it hand to hand as such.
The other thing about training can't do much about separation anxiety. You know, you can't train.
No.
The thing is, surely the fact that you board dogs or daycare dogs, those dogs must probably mostly be dogs that do have separation problems, because that's why they need you.
Well, actually, no, because I think the thing is with me, any dog who comes into our home has to be able to get on with my cocker, who's only known me to board. He's coming up to 5 years old now. So he kind of wheedles out the anxiety compared to the ones that are more confident. We have had, though, yesterday we had a dog come in for daycare. It was a trial day. He's also got a trial and overnight coming on. He's an F2 Cocker Span. No, he's an F2 Cockapoo. You'd think he's a Labradoodle because he really looks like one. And he's on fluoxetine
Oh, right.
for his anxiety. And
Right.
his anxiety is because they had already researched the breed, wanted this dog, had found the breeder, everything, but the dog wasn't ready until, well, of course, we didn't know that lockdown was going to happen. So he didn't probably come to them until August of that year. So mum's been along around him all the time. He's got very glued to her. But she's been working with behaviourist. I don't know who it is. They're based in Ampthill, and working with the trainer. And he's now got a dog walker, so he's getting his confidence.
Right.
But
It
you
sounds
know, I
very
have
much a
seen,
bit familiar to me, I have to say.
yeah, he's very raw in the fact that he hasn't had the opportunities of maybe the other dogs who have come to me on puppy sessions, etc., etc. He's a very sorry. He's very unsure about being with other dogs and very wary of humans. But with me, it's very slowly. Sorry, I've got to cough, so I'm going to unmute myself.
Right. Oh dear. Well, we've all got different angles on. It's been quite interesting, hasn't it? Because you know, we've had one where another dog will do. We've had one where there's one on the whole, it needs to be a particular person, preferably. That's probably you, Vicky. And we've had one or two where any person will do. I'm not sure about Matt. I'm not sure about him. If you know, I'm actually thinking that if my nearly 12-year-old Cocker Spaniel was on side of the window and I was doing something interesting the other side of the window, he'd be quite insistent about wanting to come through as well, I think. I mean, I suppose if I worked on it, I could stop him, but it seems a bit unreasonable, really.
Well, I'll do, because obviously Milo comes to me like 2 to 3 times a week, is that I will work with him, because I think your idea about him being attached to me while I'm packing dogs in and out of the car is an absolute, I just never thought of that, and it's a phenomenal idea. And so he is there with me all the time, and then we can gradually break it down.
You see, it's a bit like Lisa was saying. Well, I understand what she was saying about desensitizing to triggers. Now, in that case, you have him tied to you. You'll start desensitizing him to the trigger when you start taking dogs out to the car, because it's no longer going to be something he doesn't know what you're doing. You're going to be going with him, whether he's going to go with you, whether he likes it or not. And so, you know, I suspect that, you know, if you did that for a month or two, then you could probably leave him and you wouldn't fuss. Worth a go,
I think when I'm packing up the car, he gets anxious that, you know, everyone's got their harnesses on, we're all getting our leads on, we've got all our collars on, we're going.
Yes.
Oh, am I not going? But you've forgotten me, and I'm not going out on that adventure. But when we come home, totally different.
Yes.
I take him out of the car first. I pop him into the house with preferably with well, it doesn't matter which dog, because they're all very well matched together. And he's happy as Larry, and he doesn't start the silliness, the anxiety. It's only, and I think that's where the fear is. But with Milo, it's very much
missing out, isn't it? He's really fearful of missing out.
He is. He has FOMO, big stuff. Bless him.
You know, in
Love
your
him to
case, I
bits.
think you can get around it. And I think if it's only a question of watching Matt out the window, what I would say, I mean, if it was my dog, I would certainly take the dog, tie him up somewhere. So I actually shared the experience with him, you know.
Yeah. I think we get too worried too easily. And being a dog owner and a cocker owner, I do love a cocker owner myself. I have had that fear. You know, when he was younger, oh my gosh, you know, it is all to do with how our emotions are and how it throws it onto a dog and stuff like that. So
I think we need to pick our battles. That's the thing. I think we actually sometimes they're very, without any training or anything at all, nothing clever, just with a few management ideas, like the frosting on the window and like stuff, you know, you can solve a lot of things. I'm going to turn the recording off.